Sam Mellinger is here, so is Vahe Gregorian. I'm Blair Kerkhoff, and we're here to talk sports in Kansas City on this podcast, Sports Beat KC. How you doing, guys?
Terrific. How are you?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right.
Honored to be with you, Blair.
The honor, Vahe, is mine.
Well, that's true.
Hey, it was a busy weekend in sports in Kansas City. Lot to talk about here. Let's start with the Royals. Opening day was Thursday, and by my calculations, the Royals are, 2-0 in games that are delayed and 0-1 in games that have started on time this year. But 2-1, pretty good for the Royals out of the gate. How long was it before they won their first series last season?
I think it was May 5th.
Mid-September, I thought it was.
It really was. I think it was May 5th to 7th. I think that's what it was.
2 out of 3 from another team that lost 100 games last year. So take that into account. But what were the developments? When I think about the Royals and what happened on opening weekend, it kind of starts with pitching for me at different levels. But from the get-go, what was the big takeaway from the weekend?
Okay, so everything that we talk about should be, it's 3 games out of 162 against a kind of crappy team, right? But if the Royals are going to be good, that's exactly how it's going to be. It was a ton of speed all over the place, not just stolen bases, but Billy Hamilton tagging up on a fly ball to mid-right, not even deep right field. It was really good pitching. Here's one thing, like this is kind of a macro deal. If the Royals are going to be good, they've got 3 guys on this team with some ceiling who could be stars. It's Brad Keller, it's Mondesi, and it's Jorge Soler. And all 3 of those guys were really, really good in this first weekend. If that continues, there's a path. It's a narrow path. It's an unlikely path, but there's a path for them to be a good team.
Well, hey, what'd you think? You were out there on Sunday.
A few different things. One is just the starting pitching. Keller was the best, of course, but the last with Junis and who's the guy I watched yesterday?
Jorge Lopez. Those guys kept the Royals in the game, right? They're getting what they want out of their starting pitching right now. The bullpen is in total flux. The thing that, of course, is my last impression, because it was a strong impression, was just finally seeing Kyle Zimmer pitch yesterday. And, thinking of it as you're getting into it, this isn't just a moment. This isn't just a novelty act. He's here. And now we need to see where this can build from, right? It's been a long time coming. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I still worry about the trap door falling open for him. He's just been so tortured over time with all these injuries. But this is a potential building block in a spot on the team where they really need it. So I'm encouraged by that.
And you talked to him after the game. What was his emotions? What was that about? I mean,
it was really sort of infectious, actually. He literally was still smiling about 45 minutes after the game, and I'm pretty sure it was straight through. And while we were talking to Lopez, typically the format after the game is the media gets to get with the starting pitcher first. So we were over there, and Kyle was making the rounds, just getting hugs all over the clubhouse. And I got to talk to him for a few minutes after the media scrum, and I guess I'll always remember him saying he felt like he was floating off the field when he left. And I got with his dad afterwards too, and his dad was just constantly wiping tears away. And some reader called me on this today. I quoted his dad saying that Kyle had crawled across a lot of broken glass. Try saying that. And the guy said, well, this is kind of relative. And that's true. I mean, he did get a $5 million bonus, and I don't think he literally crawled through any glass. But it's a great moment. It's a great moment. And good for him, good for the organization.
And Sam, what does it mean for the bullpen? Because I don't think the bullpen had a especially good weekend.
No, it did not. I mean, if this is real with Kyle Zimmer, it's a huge piece. That's an inning that can be taken care of. I mean, his stuff, if we can just talk, like the journey is incredible. And the journey, you should read Vahe's story, and Lynn wrote a good story from spring training about it as well. Like the journey is incredible, and it could be almost a movie at some point. But if you just talk about him as a big league pitcher, pretty badass. I mean, he's got 95, 96. He's got an incredible changeup that not only is a huge change of speeds. I mean, I think it's like 80 miles an hour. I mean,
it was like 76. I saw yesterday. One of those came in,
and it dives. It dives like down and to the right. Sorry.
You know, he's
trying to get that Fox
Sorry.
tracker in my mind here.
He's got a lot of stuff to get big league hitters out. And look, that's been true. I saw him in Omaha. Was it last summer or the summer before? And he was dominant there. Like when he's healthy, that's always been true. But to be able to see it on a big league mound against hitters who are in the big leagues, I think it was just kind of confirmation of what we've all heard. But he's got some. I mean, he can be an 8th, 9th inning guy.
Quick aside or corollary to your point, and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as his dad said it yesterday, but the point with Kyle has always been you don't really have any doubt about what his ability is. I mean, of course, clearly you have to see it go through each level, but just his ability to stay healthy. I think the implication is if he's the guy, if he's just able to be him, he's going to be a good major league pitcher. And maybe a dominant one. Maybe. I mean, I guess we need to be a little careful here, right? He's pitched 1 inning in the major leagues now.
Yeah.
But it's a germ of hope for a guy that was part of what they were banking their future on.
And I got to be careful when I say this company because I've been pronouncing, of course, we call it line drive our whole lives, right? But Driveline has played a pretty big role in this. And I'm not. Is he the first Royals player to go through?
I believe he is.
In the Seattle-based company that rehabs athletes, and what is the significance of him of the Royals sending him? I don't know if the Royals sent him there. Take us through that.
The way it's been described to me is on their advice, and this was after they had, it was an administrative move, but they released him with the idea that he would sign right back. It was kind of just an administrative. We can get into the weeds later. But I think it's really important. I think the Royals have always been viewed around baseball, much of it fair, some of it not, as behind the times, as regressive, as, trying to win in 2019 in ways that really worked in the 1960s. Like that's sort of the exaggerated view. And so this is the Royals, and look, like last chance, right? Like, I mean, backs against the wall, but embracing kind of this new way. And look, I don't think they're as backwards as the industry tends to believe. I don't think they're as forward thinking as maybe they think internally, but I think that is significant that they sort of open their minds, open their hearts to, sort of letting somebody else have a crack with him.
And I think that was a point his dad reinforced yesterday too, that he had to step out of everything, right? It wasn't going to work. His dad even used the insanity line about, the definition of it being repeating the same stuff and expecting different results. And that's testimony of what you said, Sam. I mean, that the Royals were willing to, and again, backs to the wall, but willing to say, all right, let's try this. And it was interesting. I guess we don't have to get too much into the weeds about the actual transactional way this went, but they did release him but stand by him at the same time. Meanwhile, though, there was a chance other teams were calling, and I'm not sure if offers specifically came or not, but Kyle wanted to be a Royal, and the Royals were still invested in him. They were never, just throwing him out.
That to me is one of the sort of the most significant parts of this is the Royals have always, Dayton Moore, this front office, this leadership group has made baseball personal in a way that I think other front offices don't do. It's so analytical. Players are commodities, all that stuff. The Royals have always, right and wrong. Some of it's been good, some of it's been bad. But this, to me, with Kyle Zimmer, sticking with him, was it 7 years ago? It was a 2012 draft, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
7 years, all these ups and downs, and they stuck with him this long. The proof is in they released him. He could have said no. He could have gone and tried, sign with the Yankees or the Mariners or the Marlins or the Rangers, anybody else. But he felt something. He felt a bond. He felt a love. He felt some support. Might be the best word. That is the Royals to me, like at their purest. That sometimes it works. Sometimes it's counterproductive. But they make things so personal, and I think it really helps with Kyle Zimmer.
It's a really interesting twist on this whole thing, isn't it? When you're thinking about the things that distinguish the Royals, whether it's they're not as forward thinking as they think they are, they're not as backwards as others think. There's this little element that is part of what defines them, and it really is sort of just drizzling down from Dayton at some point, right? I mean, it's Dayton's way. And an example you're making me think of as you say this is Alex Gordon, which has been a complicated thing,
Totally.
right? But I remember Dayton saying this when they signed Alex Gordon to what at that moment was a happy moment and, a triumph. And talking about how he really was never wanting to take advantage of a relationship because the relationship was more important, basically. And that fits into this in a way I'm not able to bring back down to earth, but it just always stuck with me that is sort of one of their prime directives, that's how they're going to think, for better or worse, as you note.
They've shown loyalty. I mean, that's how they built the championship, right? Like, a lot of teams would have walked away from Alcides Escobar. Maybe the Royals should have, but then he was the ALCS MVP?
Yeah.
Right? He was hitting lead. I mean, he was a key part of a world champion. Alex Gordon was a failure at third base. And maybe if the Royals were in a different part of their development, they would have walked away from him. But let's try him in left field. And he had the faith in the organization that they had his best interest. So we tried. I mean, there is a long list of these examples that we could go through. And that's an edge that the Royals have. And if they can combine it with more of an openness to things like driveline, different ways of not just metrics, but just, there's an advanced scouting way now where it's not just like an old man with a notebook or whatever. If the Royals can get into that a little bit, they can sort of build up on this.
Let's cover one more Royals topic before we leave it, and that is the idea of Ian Kennedy as in a closing role for the Royals. Is this something we expected? Sam, what did we know about this coming out of spring training?
They started talking about it in spring training that it was a possibility. When they brought it up in the beginning, I didn't think they would actually go through with it because I thought they value guys that can just give innings. And I thought they felt like even if they were mediocre, sub-average innings, 180 of those from Ian Kennedy would be a valuable thing, for this team in this point of its development. I applaud them for doing it. Starter stuff plays better in the bullpen. He's not going to get flustered back. It's a new role, but he's been around 289 starts, I think. I mean, he's done it, so he's not going to get nervous in that role. I don't think he'll be the closer all year. I actually think there's some room for Kyle Zimmer, to get in there. Josh Stomont's going to get a chance. He's going to be up at some point. I mean, they've got some other arms, but they're getting something out of a guy who has given them, remarkably little after signing a 5-year, $72 million contract.
The only thing I'd add is I think it's a different sort of way to try to salvage what his contract has meant, because it's been an albatross, right? I mean, a real problem for them, and so if they can tweak this and it matters. I mean, I think they're kind of just guessing at it, though. I really do, but why not?
Yeah.
Try something else.
Okay, so maybe for the only time this year, I'll say let's leave the first place Royals discussion. And hey, it's Blair Kerkhoff, and if you're listening to this, you love Kansas City sports, whether it's the Chiefs, Royals, Sporting, Mizzou, KU, or K-State. And no one covers these teams like the Kansas City Star. If you currently subscribe to the paper or have a digital subscription, thank you for your support. And if you don't, here's a great offer. It's called Sports Pass, unlimited digital access to every sports story and video on kansascity.com. And it's just $30 for the first year. It's the best sports value in town, just 8 cents a day or $2.50 a month. You can't beat that. Subscribe now at kansascity.com/sportspass. Welcome back, Vahe Gregorian and Sam Mellinger. I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We're here with, we're talking sports in Kansas City on SportsBeat KC, and KC was touched by the madness this weekend. March Madness passed through Sprint Center with the Midwest Regional, and when the bracket came out a couple weeks ago, and we saw that the number 4 seed in the Midwest region was Kansas, and the number 6 seed was Iowa State. I think a lot of Midwesterners went out and bought tickets, and the 4 teams that ended up coming to Kansas City were North Carolina, Kentucky, Auburn, and Houston. So the closest of those teams was 600 miles away in Lexington, Kentucky. Nevertheless, we saw some terrific games, some surprises, which is sort of the MO of March. And Vahe, you and I were there on Friday. And in fact, you have covered Auburn's previous two games to their championship on Sunday. I imagine when you go into a game thinking about what you might write about, especially for a night game, you're thinking of the possibility of Auburn not winning the game. You don't go into it thinking Auburn, right?
No,
but
right.
You came out of it, with a different impression.
Absolutely, and let's go back to the day the bracket came out. I remember sort of the fantasy bracket for us here would have been Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas, and Iowa State. And I remember a wise guy in the newsroom pointing out that, could be, but what if the bracket gets busted up like the ones we got into last year, especially the one where K-State was in the regional.
That's right.
So these things happen, and I'd say Kansas City still got its money's worth, though, didn't it, with the way it played out? And I think having the marquee teams like Carolina and Kentucky here was still pretty special. And then really the games themselves were just a treat. And yesterday was the best of all. And you were knee deep in it, Blair. And I was at the Royals game, kind of keeping an eye on it, and sort of thinking, in all candor, I hope Kyle Zimmer pitches, because there's not much to write here unless he pitches, and luckily he did. But seeing that scene with the Chuma coming in on the wheelchair, and you just started getting the feeling it was meant to be for Auburn.
Yeah, to have defeated Kansas as easily as they did. Of course, they came out on fire, and that game was over by if not the first, then the second media timeout. They were 2-point lead over North Carolina at halftime, but ended up stretching that thing out early in the second half. And that's when you mentioned Chuma Okeke suffered the torn ACL, and I thought that was going to really impact Auburn for the Kentucky game. But turns out Kentucky, the closest game that Auburn played of that Kansas, Carolina, Kentucky trilogy, but then end up winning it in overtime. And meant to be sounds like it's a kind of an apt way to describe the feel that you have with Auburn now. Our friend Sam's too young to remember this, but it almost has that Arizona in 1997 feel, right? The Miles Simon and Bibby team that beat those three teams, not in succession like Auburn did, but beat those three teams on the way to an improbable national championship.
I remember 1997 very well in a couple ways, because Sam had just been born. No, because Blair, I was at the Post-Dispatch at the time, and you very kindly decided to come through St. Louis. I think maybe you flew in, and we drove down to Memphis together for that. And I guess we ended up in Birmingham.
Yeah, we drove. Or Memphis
first.
I think it was Memphis,
Okay.
Memphis and then Birmingham. That's right.
Memphis, then Birmingham. So I was kind of on board for the whole thing with UKC Star guys. And that locker room when Kansas lost in Birmingham, that was as devastated a locker room as I can ever remember seeing. I mean, and it's sort of a side point here, but that has stayed with me all this time. Our friend Ryan Robertson was one of those guys, I believe, and anyway, maybe it was on my mind just seeing Roy Williams again this weekend, and another tearful ending for Roy in the tournament.
Yeah, and I was kidding about Sam. You were in school then, weren't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. School aged. Yeah.
But Vahe brings up an interesting point in that one of the things that I love about March isn't just you see competitive games all during the regular season of college basketball, 1-point games, overtime games, and everything. But when the stakes are as high as they are for March, it raises the emotional level of the celebration and then the defeat. And you see you go into these locker rooms after the team is lost to be eliminated, and it is devastating. And it can be so devastating in there. And the celebration on the floor is so joyous. Bruce Pearl, the Auburn coach, was beside himself going to his first Final Four. And look, we all appreciate and love the championship events that we've either watched or covered, but I just think there's a different level of emotion when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
There is. My kids aren't old enough to remember this, but the worst that I can remember was Kansas when they lost to Northern Iowa in either Tulsa or Oklahoma City in the second round, and there was just open wailing. I mean, just open, loud, almost like uncomfortable. Why am I here? Sort of sobbing. It was awful. I think like a couple of the sort of mental images of this tournament, and this goes along with what you're just saying, is it's not Tyus Jones, it's Trey Jones, right? The point guard from Duke. How he was after that game last night when they lost. I mean, just for a long time, just, missed the handshake line because he's just, can't, wrap his mind around that stuff. The other thing I think about, like so yes, you get each extreme very much, because these are college kids. In some ways, it's even more than it is like in professional sports, because these are college kids. A lot of them, this is the last time they're ever going to play, and I think you're more emotional when you're in college than you are when you're 32 or whatever in the pros. But the other thing, all of that, the stakes, and this is what we're talking about, all the stakes, the pressure, all that stuff, it either ruins the way that you play or it lifts the way that you play. And in the Elite Eight, this was an absolutely amazing round of basketball. Maybe you can go back, maybe this is recency bias, but how many times has a player played as well and dominating as Carson Edwards and lost? That's as well as you can play in a lot of ways, and he still wasn't good enough to win. That's how good Virginia was. That Duke-Michigan State game, there was a lot of that was a high-level basketball. Texas Tech, the teams in that round, for whatever reason, seemed to, rise to the occasion, even the ones that lost, That was an incredible round of basketball.
Let's talk about the end of the regulation of that Virginia-Purdue game, because that play in the final 5.9 seconds, I think, will go down as one of the top plays in the history of the NCAA tournament. The sequence of events, it was phenomenal. Phenomenal what had to happen for that to succeed, and for Virginia to advance in the tournament to the Final Four. And let's start with the background of this team is about to lose a game, to a Purdue team that's more than capable of winning that game and advancing deserving to advance to the Final Four. But Virginia, of course, was the team that became the first in NCAA tournament history to lose as a number 1 seed to a 16 seed. So I don't know if this would have been as devastating, but it would have been really disappointing for Virginia to lose a game like this. So Virginia's at the line with a 2-shot. Ty Jerome is standing at the free throw line. He's got 2 shots. They're down 3. Right? Mm-hmm. Virginia is down 3 with 5.9 seconds to play. He makes the first one. I read in his post-game comments that he did not intend to miss the second one.
Oh, I assumed he did.
I assumed he did, and I still assume he did, and wonder if he felt some incentive not to say that he did. Maybe he thought it was against the rules or something. I don't know. It seemed weird to me.
His line was he made the first one on purpose. But so the second one, and usually when you miss a free throw like that, you miss it long. You're trying to hit it off the back iron, not the front iron. But this one bounced off the front iron, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Diakite, right? For Virginia, who's not on the inside because of the free throw alignment. He's the second person in, but the ball bounces far enough for him to tap it back. And he doesn't tap it back to the 3-point line where you'd think, that's where somebody would be. He taps it all the way to the backcourt. Mm-hmm. He's able to do this because there's 5.9 seconds to go and not 3.9 seconds to go. But the freshman guard, Clark, runs it down and has the presence of mind to see Diakite open, from about 12 feet from the basket, throws a strike, and Diakite has to catch it above his head and shoot it above his head because there's no time left. The ball goes through the hoop after the buzzer sounds, ties the game, it goes into overtime. It's a mind-blowing sequence of events that I think you could spend days breaking down everything that happened and what should have happened, starting with the fact that Purdue missed a free throw to keep it a 3-point game from that Ryan Clark kid or Ryan Klein, who was incredible shooter during the tournament. Anyway, I hope that the Richmond or the Roanoke or the Norfolk papers or Charlottesville did a sequence, a breakdown of the 5.9 seconds. I was just blown away by all of that. I was thinking about that all night, that sequence. I was thinking about it all night, and it was an amazing play.
I think I saw you throw out on Twitter shortly after, just the question of should they have fouled there to do that. And I guess part of the question now, to me, now that you mentioned the time frame, is could they have waited 2 more seconds to foul?
I think, and Sam, I know we've talked about this. It is such a frenzied moment, and to ask a defensive player to foul at a certain time, I think maybe asking a little too much, especially if the guy with the ball is he about to shoot?
Yep.
Could it be could it be in the act of shooting, kind of, which you don't want at all. I think Purdue was okay with the foul when it occurred, but don't you think?
I think that it was the smart play. You'd rather have it be 3.9 than 5.9, but I just don't. Realistically, I don't know that you can ask a college kid in the middle of that chaos to keep his eye on the clock and then also his guy.
Yeah.
And foul. I think what you can do is say go for the steal in the backcourt. Once they cross half court, foul. I think that's what you do. And the sequence, look, it makes for a less sort of entertaining game in most, not in this one, but in most games to foul. Just it takes away that last second shot. But I think it's a smart move, strategically, because if you think about if they don't do that, how many crazy shots did Kyle Guy hit in the guarded, off balance 3-pointers? If he hits another one and you didn't foul, you get justifiably crushed. How do you not foul?
Right.
And the string of events, I've never said this before, but the string of events to happen, this is the part I've never said before, perfectly missed free throw. You know what I mean? Like, just to be, sort of like you mentioned, most guys go long. This was short. To get the tap out, that pass had to be perfect. That pass, I know we're this is a audio medium, but that pass had to be a bullseye. If the pass is behind Diakite, he can't.
Right.
It just doesn't work. To have that, and then that's still a tough shot. Was that over Harms? Over the 7-3 guy?
I don't know if it was over. I can't remember.
It might have been sort of more around him than over him. I'm not sure. But yeah,
the sequence of events that had to happen once you foul, I think is more unlikely. It's less likely than Kyle Guy coming around a double screen and hitting an off balance 3-point. I think you have to do that. And the moment, and they're going to show this. This will be on One Shiny Moment for sure. The moment that I think like encapsulates kind of what we're talking about, the emotion stuff, is after that. Carson Edwards is waiting at the, they're about to fill the ball up, and he just kind of smiles and like laughs, like, "Are you kidding me?" To Diakite, who kind of laughs. He's like, "Well, you've been doing this the whole game." It's like that's the moment. I don't care about Purdue, I don't care about Virginia, but I loved that moment, and I was so wrapped up in that moment. That's why that's why they have a $12 billion contract or whatever for that moment.
Let's leave the topic on one thought here, and that's Vahe. You had an incredible opportunity a year ago to sit next to Tony Bennett, the Virginia coach, at a function in St. Louis. Weeks after he, lost to UMBC, Maryland, Baltimore County, and I remember you telling me that you had some really favorable impressions.
Absolutely, and I can't remember. Maybe you've known Tony for some years. I had met him incidentally before, but last year we had a U.S. Basketball Writers Association banquet in St. Louis. And the twist for poor Tony was all the voting for National Coach of the Year is before the NCAA tournament. So he's National Coach of the Year. And then he suffers the greatest indignity, in a sense, of ever in the NCAA tournament, of being the first guy to have his team lose as a number 1 seed to a number 16. And some guys might not show up for these events, find a reason not to be there. He actually showed up in San Antonio for the Final Four, you'll recall, at the AP thing, and was amazingly gracious then. He was that way immediately after the defeat. And in St. Louis, he was self-deprecatory, but also it was clear to me the whole time he was going to make this a broader thought in his life about the meaning of this and how do we respond to this. And I don't mean just the reflexive, we get up off of the mat. I mean, why does this happen? Why do you have this in your journey? Things like that. And it was really pretty inspiring, actually. And he was great dinner company. I sat right next to him for 2 hours up there, and he's like whispering jokes when other people are talking. And he was Whitey Herzog was there and signed a baseball cap. I think it was a Cardinals cap, and Tony's not a Cardinals fan, but he was sort of agog, if that's still a word that we can use, with Whitey Herzog. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but it just happened. But I'll always remember Tony Bennett from that. And Cindy and I were actually watching the game the other night, and I was trying to explain to her how cool it was to see this for him, and I think I got it across to her.
You know what it made me think of is, this is maybe a little bit random, but a few years ago, it's been many years ago now, Dirk Nowitzki won the MVP award in the NBA, and they lost in the first round.
Right,
that
that's
year.
right. As a one.
Yeah, and he had his MVP press conference as it happened, like as the voting is done. Regular, it was kind of similar deal, and that press conference was it was almost like apologetic. It was like, I can't believe I won this award. It's a big disappointment. That Tony Bennett was like the smart, inspirational upgrade from that moment. Like that's kind of the default setting I think a lot of us would probably go to. Think about what couldn't happen. Tony almost immediately, even after I can't remember who the locker
it was in the hallway right after. You're right.
They always do that interview.
Yeah.
And right in that moment, I was like, oh my, this is an impressive, because he said that. You wrote it again, but this is part of our story now. Nothing we can do about that. It's up to us to how we use that, or how we, how we take this into the future. It was such a cool message that, not to get too deep, but we can all use that in a lot of
that's why it was so cool, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it struck you because it's more than about just the moment in sports.
Yep.
It's like, I could use a little of that way of thinking in some of the mishaps I create or have happened to me.
Yeah.
Is what I meant to
fault
say.
of my own.
Yeah, nothing to do with me.
I love those stories. Guys, it was great. Vahe, Gregorian, Sam Mellinger. I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Follow the coverage, all things Kansas City sports in the print editions of the Kansas City Star digitally on kansascity.com, and download the podcast, Sports Beat KC. Thank you very much.